drug dealers try to kill another drug dealer that was walking in the door. They did a drive-by with automatic weapons, and I happened to be in the back room, and I heard the bullets hitting the wall where I was at, and I came out, and I saw blood everywhere. And
was it true that you guys were so overwhelmed that people were applying to be cops off the street, and they were getting hired?
Yes and no. But that very first week on my own, I had a husband who took the family hostage with a rifle. He went to a house in uniform and in green and white. He was meeting with his drug dealer handlers. He didn't know at the time that they were going to kill him.
FBI, open up! The FBI swarming a Miami house and taking a man into custody in the area of Southwest.
So say goodnight to the bad guy.
The agency says the 28-year-old was picked up after the grand jury indicted him and 5 others.
Sergeant Maverick, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thank you, Nelson. I appreciate it.
Definitely.
Doing well.
This is a long time in the making. We booked this like months ago. So
yes,
glad we finally got it done.
Absolutely.
I'm getting to the point where the podcast has gotten big enough where people reach out to me and they're like, hey, would you like this person on? And I'm like, sure. So I'm glad, your team emailed me and heard a little bit of your story from the 10 Toes podcast with Jason. So this is going to shape up to be fun for sure.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Definitely. So, let's get right into it. So you're a retired sergeant with Miami-Dade PD for 30 years? Okay.
37.
37 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you decide to go into law enforcement?
I think it was one of those things I was predisposed to do, and I think if you're military, fire, police, because they all have similarities. It's all about service to the public, to the country, and to one another.
Mm.
And of course, danger is an inherent risk in all three of those professions. But I really started giving it some serious thought when I was about 20 years old. I had moved to Miami from New York. My family had come down just ahead of me. And it turned out my parents' backdoor neighbors was a Metro-Dade cop.
Mm.
So, yes, Miami-Dade, but back then it was called Metro-Dade.
Metro-Dade, that's old school.
Which with the us dinosaurs still like to call it Metro.
Metro-Dade.
Right? It was Metro Police and Metro Fire, and that's the way we like it. So I got to spend a lot of time with this sergeant as a neighbor, and I got to know him and what he did and everything, and it really got me thinking about it. I had some experiences where I interacted with Metro Police as a security officer. When I first moved to Miami, I needed a job. And I had some interaction with them then. But then I also, as an Eckerd store assistant manager, Eckerd Drug Store, we had a shooting take place at the store I was at where drug dealers tried to kill another drug dealer that was walking in the door. They did a drive-by with automatic weapons. And I happened to be in the back room, and I heard the bullets hitting the wall where I was at. And I came out, and I saw blood everywhere. And they didn't kill the guy, but Metro Police had to respond and start handling the scene. And then, that was the big one. But then I kept giving it some thought and some more thought. And I go, you know what? I think I want to do this.
Mm.
That's where my heart was. I wanted to be a professional soccer player when I had grown up in New York.
Big U-turn.
Well, it didn't quite work out as it doesn't for tens of thousands of aspiring athletes. In 1979, I was voted or considered the best defensive player in New York State.
Oh, wow.
Thought I had a shot. I wanted to come down and try out for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, and two things happened. Ray Hudson, the coach of the Strikers, said, go to college. We'll find you there. Number two, my father said no. That was it.
That was over.
I went to a small college. I played soccer for them, but they weren't good at anything. And I won't mention their name, but they sucked at every sport. So, it didn't happen. So, okay, move on, So in 1982, I applied to Metro Police and Metro Fire. It was going to be one or the other. Fire almost hired me, but 2 weeks after my final interview for Fire, my background investigator called me and said, you're starting the police academy February 8th, 1983.
Wow.
And that's how it started.
37 years.
Yeah.
So the The Eckarts, the story of when you worked at Eckarts, what year was that?
81.
So this is like in the thick of the 80s, the cocaine era, cocaine cowboys.
Yes.
Okay. You would think, I mean, me personally, I put myself in your shoes. If that happened to me, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that. But you were the opposite. You were like, all right, let me get in on this. How do I do this?
You got to be somewhat of an adrenaline junkie.
I would say so.
I like the action. Now, let me qualify that statement. I never thought of or wanted to or would do it now about jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. I will not parachute. I don't bungee jump. Okay? That to me is playing the odds in the wrong direction. All right? And I got to tell you, as I've gotten older, I've developed a fear of heights. I don't go up in tall buildings anymore. And it's funny, I was going to be a firefighter, right? They have to go in heights and all that, but I wasn't afraid back then. And I like flying, and I like especially flying in a helicopter. That is the coolest thing. I flew in our police helicopter quite a few times. Never was afraid. You're going up like this instead of going on a runway, you know, and you're looking around and he's flying around and stuff. It's the coolest thing. But I won't jump out of a plane. I'm afraid to do that. And I don't trust the mechanism. You know, somebody packing my chute and all that. But I am an adrenaline junkie. I always liked the action on the street. I ride a motorcycle as well. You know, not a crotch rocket. I ride a touring bike, but still, I like to ride a motorcycle. You have to have that predisposition if you're going to do this job, or if you're going to do fire, or you're going to go in the military, because danger is part of it. And how you embrace that danger, how you look at it, can make you or break you. If you're afraid all of the time, you're going to slip up and make a mistake, maybe get hurt. To me, it's akin to playing a game not to lose instead of playing a game to win. So you don't dwell on it. The danger's there, don't dwell on it. Just accept it. Have enough fear in the back of your mind to keep you safe as much as possible, because it's not 100%. So I did it, and yes, I had no fear during the cowboy era or anything like that. I just wanted to do the job, and it was a really fun time to come on the job.
I bet.
I know that sounds weird. You know, people that don't understand. Wild, Wild West.
Literally.
Yeah, it was. Call to call to call, stuff happening all the time. The drug dealers were very busy. We at that time, we were literally finding bodies every day.
Yeah, at the height of the homicide, I think in Miami we had 900 bodies a year or something like that.
It was crazy.
It was nuts.
It was so crazy that the Metro-Dade Homicide Bureau, the squads of homicide detectives, they created their own narcotics-related squad because of how many there were happening. City of Miami did something similar. It was just so many, and it just never stopped. You couldn't keep up with it. You know, drug dealers were killing each other all the time. You got ripped off. You encroached on territory all the time. And
two things before we move on. One, I remember, I forgot whether it was a documentary or a book I read. I love the 80s, everything that has to do with that whole era. My grandparents, my mother would always tell me, my mother came in Marin. That's why Scarface, like I'm a fan of the Scarface film, but to me it's a personal story to me because when they were in the tents, that was my mother, that was my grandfather. So my family, it's my family. So two things. In that era, was it true that you guys were so overwhelmed that people were applying to be cops off the street and they were getting hired?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the hiring practices for Metro-Dade were very stringent. Nothing's 100%. Bad apples slip in here and there. But City of Miami had a lot of problems in hiring. We had to hire so fast because of Mariel and because of the 80 riots, right? The McDuffie riots, as they were termed. Metro and City Miami had to grow so fast to keep up or try to keep up with the influx of people moving here. And of course, the drugs and the crime and all the crime that came with that, the parasitic crime. Because Mariel also brought a lot of criminals and a lot of people with mental illness. Regardless of the politics, you know, Carter as president just let it happen. And now all of a sudden Miami has, boom, a couple 100,000 more people in this area. No area can sustain that. So now you're playing catch up, and the police departments had to do that. City of Miami was hiring very quickly as well, but they weren't doing their background checks as thorough as we were. And a lot of gang kids got into the ranks of the City of Miami, which either directly or indirectly led to some of the things like the river cops.
Right.
Right, where they were bad guys themselves, and they were ripping off drug dealers and killing drug dealers.
Right. It became an inside job because the bad guys were becoming cops.
Yes, absolutely. So you had a lot of that, and I'm sure their internal affairs was very busy, as was the feds when they found out that a lot of these guys were doing this type of stuff. So we had ours also, but not to the extent that the City of Miami did. And it's a shame, because if you're a good cop, and I'm going to say this, mine is the only profession that you ever hear people, either the media, the politicians, or people in general, say 99% of all cops are good. I am so tired of hearing that. How come you never say 99% of all politicians are good? How come you never say 99% of all lawyers are good, or doctors, or teachers? Or no, only our profession people say that. Everybody has bad apples. They make it through the system, or they turn bad for some reason, and we have to root them out. We don't want them there as much as the public, wants bad cops. But it isn't as pervasive as some people think.
Right.
It's few and far in between, and that's what we have internal affairs for, to investigate these guys and get them out of there. We don't want them there either. So the growth is what spurs that when you're getting less than qualified candidates. And it just happens. It doesn't matter where, what kind of profession it is. It's going to happen.
Right.
Volume creates the chaos.
Second thing before we move on to the next subject, you said you had a story about Scarface that you wanted to tell me? All right, go ahead.
So I'm a big fan of the movie also.
Of course.
Libertad. Yeah. It's a great cult classic. When I was assigned at the Port of Miami, I took over the responsibilities from another sergeant that I replaced of doing all the security plans for the naval and cruise ship visits.
This is much later in your career.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the USS Kanawha, which was a merchant marine supply vessel for the U.S. Navy, was in port. And the USS Roosevelt that was getting commissioned here because the commander was from South Florida. So a big ceremony. So I used to do the security plans for all the Navy ships that came in. Part of my responsibilities was to take the weapons officer who was in charge of security for the vessel. I'd drive him around, I'd take him into downtown Miami, and then I'd take him over across the causeway to Miami Beach because the sailors are going to go on shore leave. So then I would explain to them, these are the areas your guys need to go. When you cross the causeway over here, you are in Miami Beach jurisdiction. They have their own police department. When you leave the Port of Miami, you're in the city of Miami. They have their own police department. The port is handled by Miami-Dade Police. It's a county facility. Should your guys get into any trouble, here's the phone number you need to call. Hopefully they don't do something stupid that we can't get them out of, right? But the second in command of the supply vessel, the merchant marine vessel, regular Navy. The captain and him were regular Navy. Everybody else was merchant marine. So I'm taking them around and I'm showing them the tour, and I take them over to Ocean Drive because everybody wants to see Ocean Drive, right? We're driving up slowly north on Ocean Drive, and he says, "Where's that chainsaw scene?" Right? And we were right in the block where it happened. So I pull over and I stop and I go, okay, so understand, it just doesn't look like it did back in 82 when they filmed this, but you're right here. I didn't know this, but that was him and his wife's favorite movie. And they're from Minnesota. He's in the U.S. Navy, but he's from Minnesota, right? He calls her up on his cell phone and says, honey, you're not going to believe this, but I'm here with the police from the port, and I'm right at the spot where the chainsaw scene took place. I mean, he was like a child in a candy store, right? A kid in a candy store. He was having such a good time. I said, he wanted to like get down and go, look. I go, look, it's all changed. It's not the same. But this is where it took place before they moved filming to California, right? Before the big controversy. So it was just really funny, but I was able to provide a little, happiness to this guy inadvertently. And he had such a good time with it. And he never stopped talking about it. Good people that came in on the Navy ships.
To this day, it's actually a CVS now. And on the side of the CVS, the stairs of the where the hotel used to be are still there. And next to the stairs, there's a plaque that says,
"Is there?
This is where the chainsaw or whatever in the scene in Scarface was filmed." I just ate dinner there for my birthday a couple months ago. They just made a restaurant next door called Montana's.
Uh-huh.
And it's like this underground speakeasy restaurant that's like fully decked out with Tony Montana Scarface theme. It's really cool.
I'm going to have to go there.
Yeah, I highly recommend that. You can't miss it. There's a big white convertible Cadillac parked outside with a fake Tony Montana in the driver's seat.
That's great. When did they open this?
Not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly new, but it's great. It's a great experience. The whole background is like that with the palm trees, and you feel like you're in the movie. For real.
It was a great movie. Really enjoyed it. An exaggeration, and Montana and Pacino was over the top, but still, it spoke to the way things were, especially under I-95 with Tent City.
Yep.
And I remember that because I moved here in 1980, right? And I got to see all that. And it was funny, ironic, and pretty cool to see a movie that was about Miami.
Right.
And I came down and I was just getting involved in the Cuban culture. My parents are from Argentina. So I came down and had a bit of culture shock, right? I had to learn Spanish all over again because a lot of the words the Cubans use, the Argentinians don't use. Conversely, Puerto Ricans, some of the nuance and wording is different. But it was an interesting time, the way Miami was growing.
For sure.
And Scarface really described the way things were. And then, of course, came a couple of years later, Miami Vice, which was fantastic, that our police department is being shown on national television for the first time. It's not NYPD, it's not Chicago, it's not San Francisco, it's not Los Angeles.
Right.
It's Metro-Dade. Because a lot of people don't know this, but Sonny Crockett was a Metro-Dade sergeant. They just called it Miami Vice because it didn't sound,
Didn't sound as cool.
Yeah, it had to be Miami, of course, because the whole area is Miami. Yes, city of Miami and Miami Beach, two separate cities, but everything we call Miami down here.
Yep.
And that's the way everybody knows it.
Right.
So.
All right, so 82, you finished the academy. What's it like? I mean, walk me through it. You show up first day on the job. What's that like?
Well, you graduate, you finish all your academy training, and then you go to your assigned district. So Metro had 7 districts at the time. I went to our Southwest district, which is the Kendall area down there, which backs up Coral Gables in South Miami. And you get assigned to a field training officer. So now these field training officers are going to take you through your training on the street, applying what you learned in the academy to practical street application. And of course, most FTOs say, forget everything you learned in the academy, I'm going to show you the right way. Not true. The academy gave you the base, the foundation. You just have to learn how to make it work now on the street. So what happens with every single FTO and rookie, the first meeting, is that you have the talk, as I call it. And the FTO is going to tell you, this is what I expect from you. These are the things that we're going to be doing. And when I tell you to do something, you do it quickly. There is no hesitation. Because obviously he or she knows something that you don't. you have your head up your ass. You're coming out, you're overwhelmed with information. You got your new uniform on and, you know, and you're looking good and you have no idea how to be a cop. And then you go out on the street with your FTO for the first time, your first call. You learn how to check into service on the radio. And most FTOs will show you once or twice how to do that and then expect you to do it afterwards. My first shift was 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. with Sunday, Monday off. And as it turns out, throughout my career, afternoon shift was my favorite shift.
Why was that?
I am not a morning person. I am still not a morning person, even though I've been retired over 5 years. I'm not a midnight person either. That's a whole other animal. I mean, working midnights is tough. But I enjoyed the transition from day into evening, and it's very busy. There's always something happening, call after call after call. Something's hitting the fan. Everybody's running lights and sirens or in progress calls, and it's just a fun shift to be on. So now you're out, and my very first call, Nelson, was an alarm call at a house with an open door. So it's a burglar alarm with an open door. What you're supposed to do when you arrive on alarm calls is you check all the doors to see if any are unlocked. When you find them unlocked, now you've got to go in and search that house to make sure there's no bad guy inside.
Right.
So this is what we got, my very first call. I got to pull my gun on my very first call. And I remember there was a German Shepherd on scene. So Scotty, my first field training officer, and I have to go and check the house. So he gets on the radio, tells the dispatcher, hold the air, we have an open door, we have to go search the house. So the dispatcher holds the air in case we have an emergency transmission because we found a bad guy or something happened. So she has clear air to notify the other units in the area to come back us up if necessary. So here I am, very first call out of the box, and I'm going around doing a search with my gun out, you know, the hearts doing this. Nobody inside. Okay, that was interesting. And then you got to write a report. You found the open door, and then you check into service, and you go to the next one. And it's one after the other, after the other, after the other, whatever the types of calls are. And you do that for a month with your first FTO, then you get a second one for another month on a different shift, and then a third FTO on another shift, different hours also. And then after the end of the 3 months, if you pass all first three phases, you rotate back to the first field training officer so they can see what your progress was since they first had you. And you're with them for 2 weeks, then you get cut loose on your own. And I remember getting cut loose on my own my very first day, 4 p to midnight shift, afternoons, same district. And after roll call and after the sergeant did roll call and then took me aside and had the talk of what she expected. It was a female sergeant, Vicky. All right, you're new on the squad. This is what I expect. You need any assistance, you let me know. You know, no one's an island here. Everybody works together. And she was really good because she wasn't one of those that she's not going to talk to you, you know, because back then there was a lot of, you don't talk to the sergeant, you talk to the senior officers. She wasn't like that. And when I became a sergeant, I wasn't like that either. I'm here for you, my officers. And I left the station, and I'm driving in my very own police car for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. You know, I was giddy. We're all like that because you're out there on your own now. You still don't have much idea of what you're doing, right? But that very first week on my own, I had a domestic call. I had a crash with injuries. I had a husband who took the family hostage with a rifle.
Wow.
Okay. And we had to set up a perimeter, and I'm in the backyard with my revolver behind something while he's in the house with a rifle until our special response team arrived and took over. So I was back there trying to hold my gun on the house for like an hour and a half until SRT relieved my position. It was a crazy first week. I had an abduction, or like a parental abduction.
Oh, wow.
all right out of the box, But that's the way it was. It's the way it was for all of us. And let me be clear. I'm not unique. These things didn't just happen to me. They happened to everybody.
Right.
It was it's always busy. But we were busy all the time. And you work together with others. And, what happened at the end of the day? Hey, well, how was your day? Oh, this and that and the other. If you didn't see each other on the scene. And that's just the way it was. It was boom, boom, boom all the time.
Right.
And it was fantastic. You didn't have a chance to breathe. And I got to say that during that time, I didn't want to go home. Right? Midnight's rolling around. Hey, this is a lot of fun. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. You just didn't want to go home. And if you really took the job for the right reasons, that's how you felt. Had to be fun. It was scary. At times it was frustrating. As you start gaining tenure, you start to see the administrative side of police work and the headaches that you start to encounter, both from inside and from the courts, the state attorney's office. And you have to learn not to take things personally, especially where the courts are concerned, because they're not always going to prosecute the case that you think should be prosecuted. So it opens your eyes to what life is really like out there. Everybody's sheltered from what goes on the street or in people's homes. I've always said that I get to see the inside of people's closets because you don't know what's going on in somebody's house. And we have to go handle it all.
So at this point, you're like, you love your job. It sounds like there's a ton of action. I'm sure you're dealing with shootings and homicides and all kinds of crazy stuff in that era, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the climate of the time. Like, it must have been, so you worked in 3 different decades, right? You worked in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s?
And the 2010s.
And the 2010s.
And into the 2020s.
Oh, wow.
I retired in 2020, so.
Oh, wow. So you saw a very large change from time to time, I would assume. Tell me, so let's start in that climate. Like, in the 80s, I remember you mentioning, so you have a revolver when, like, bad guys have pistols and machine guns. That alone must have been, like, crazy. Was there other situations like that with the dude with the rifle where you guys were, like, outgunned or, like, you were in a crazy situation like that?
All the time.
That's
We
insane.
were completely outgunned all the time. Law enforcement is slow to change. Okay? The analogy I use is like an aircraft carrier. It takes time to turn it.
Right.
Whereas a destroyer can turn quickly, or a Corvette, small ship. So it takes time for us to keep up with the times and evolve. Law enforcement evolves slowly. So as far as the weapons go, you had a revolver. This is what you were given. You have an extra 18 rounds on your gun belt unless you bring more with you. Maybe sign out a shotgun at the beginning of your shift. That's all you got. In 1989, Metro started transitioning to semi-autos. The department and the industry finally saw that all the bad guys, whether they were drug dealers or not, just regular run-of-the-mill bad guys, they were carrying better weapons than we were. The problem is not the type of round, because a .38 would be as effective as a 9mm, depending on the jacket and if you know ballistics and stuff. It's the amount of ammunition or the amount of rounds that are in your gun, right? So 6 shots in a shooting will go just like that, whereas semi-autos are carrying 12 and 15 rounds in the magazine. Plus, it's easier to reload a semi-auto than it is a revolver.
Of course.
So that was the issue. It's volume. We didn't have enough ammunition on us, where with semi-autos you had a lot more.
All right, guys, taking a quick break from Honor Among Thieves podcast to bring you a word from our sponsor, and that is Federal Prison Tips. At Federal Prison Tips, we help people navigate the justice system from indictment, re-entry, everywhere in between. Whether you're a loved one trying to get relief for someone that you love that it is in federal prison, you are currently in federal prison or about to go to federal prison, we can definitely help you. Everything from plea mitigation, sentencing mitigation, PRSAR challenges, anything about guidance while you're in prison, actually what to expect if you're a first timer and have never been there. Whether this is your second case, third case, you haven't quite learned your lesson yet. Either way, we can help you with everything that has to do with federal prison. Good time, FSA, second chance credits, getting designated to a facility. Any issues you might be having within the federal prison system, we can definitely help. Honor Among Thieves Podcast. Mention that you saw us on the podcast and you'll get special rates only given to those who listen to the podcast. Again, 407-434-0175, extension 7. Hit us up, federalprisontips.com. Contact us. Let them know you heard about them through me. Now let's get back to the show.
So we started to transition, and money is always an issue for a police department.
Right, of course.
Always. It always comes down to money. I don't care what it is in life. It always comes down to money. We need new equipment. We need new firearms. We need new cars. We don't have the money. And in the case of Metro-Dade, so people understand, Metro-Dade Police or Miami-Dade Police has always been the county sheriff for Dade County, even though we call ourselves Miami-Dade Police or Metro-Dade Police.
Right.
The quick background is in 1958, Dade County Commission petitioned Tallahassee to have the home rule charter to govern themselves down there. As we know, those of us that live down here, the further south you get, the more north you further south you go, the more north you get. Because Dade County is different than everywhere else in the state, right? It's more like New York as far as the diversity of the people and all that, and the attitude. So in 1958, when it became home rule charter, it was no longer the sheriff's office, the Dade County Sheriff's Office. It was the Public Safety Department, controlled by the county commission. And then later in 1980, it changed its name to Metro-Dade. And then in 97, I think it was, it changed the name to Miami-Dade. Still a sheriff's department all the way through, and all the traditional sheriff's duties. Fortunately, we did not handle the jail. Dade County Corrections was separate from the police department. Thank goodness, because the jail is its own world, its own animal, and we're glad that we didn't have to do it. Let's say like Broward Sheriff up here, where the sheriff can put you in the jail as a jail deputy as opposed to the street. Or in some sheriff's departments, you have to go through the jail first before you become a road deputy. We didn't have to do that, thankfully. And then just last year, we had an election to make it the sheriff's office again, an elected position.
I remember.
So now we have Rosie Cordero Stutz, who's the first elected sheriff in Dade County since 1958. The good thing about that is that she doesn't answer to the commission or the mayor anymore.
Right. She gets voted in by the people,
Right.
which is great.
She answers to the people.
Yep.
The only person in Florida that has authority over her is the governor.
The governor. Yep.
But the commission still has to give the budget to the police department because it's the county, right? Just like Broward Sheriff up here, Sheriff Tony gets it from the Broward County Commission.
Do you know Ruben De La Rua?
No, I don't think so.
No, he ran for sheriff. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, you guys started around the same time. I think he started in '83, but he's city of Miami, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a motorman with the city of Miami. I think he's retiring now. He's actually, you guys are around the same age too. He's like 61, 62. Anyway. So before we move on into the 90s, tell me a little bit about, was there, obviously police corruption was a big thing in the 80s, right? Was that a specific part of town? Was that a specific unit? Was that a specific type of cop? Tell me a little bit about that as far as what that climate was like, because corruption in that era was like, it's been known, but I hear different things from different police officers from that era, so I'd like your perspective.
Fortunately for us, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't pervasive. So I mentioned internal affairs. Police departments have to have internal affairs. The police that police the police, right? Complaints, discourtesy, use of force, things like that. Fortunately for Metro, we had some, obviously. So much money was flowing through South Florida It was everywhere.
It was ridiculous.
And you do a traffic stop, you got a guy with tens of thousands of dollars on him. Once in a while, somebody takes the bait, and lets them go. They get paid off. City of Miami had a lot of that. And unfortunately, those guys suffered for it. A lot of great cops in the city of Miami. They had poor leadership going way back when, much worse than ours. And because they work at the chief of Miami works at the pleasure of the mayor, the city of Miami mayor. So the mayor can get rid of any chief that they don't like at any time. And they suffered a lot. They had some really good chiefs and some really bad ones. But they've always had, not a good mayor. Having said that, our guys that got involved in that, and I have two friends that got involved in that. One was from my time on the crime suppression team. What led him to doing that? He always had money problems. Always. We're always working overtime, trying to make extra money, working off-duty jobs, which is a cop's life, overtime and off-duty jobs. And you've got to do it in order to raise the family. Well, he seemed to have more than just some money problems. Apparently, he had a lot of money problems.
A lot of money problems. Yeah.
He got involved with some drug dealers through a cousin of his, and they were guarding shipments. And then he was getting paid, obviously. Unfortunately, his cousin got popped. What did he do? He rolled on his own cousin. Okay? And I remember one time, and we found out about this afterwards, this particular guy, he went to a house in uniform and in green and white. He was meeting with his drug dealer handlers. He didn't know at the time that they were going to kill him. Wow. And he had to fight to get out of the house, knock down, drag out to get to his green and white, as we called our police cars, and get out of there. And then it all blew up after that. Because the cousin flipped on him, the DEA is involved. The DEA contacts our internal affairs. And, of course, the state attorney's office and the U.S. attorney's office. So now they're going to investigate him. And they're going to surveil and they're going to do all that. He ended up getting arrested and doing federal time. Right? And when it happened, we were shocked because we were friends of his. We were squad mates. And then when we thought about it, we weren't surprised. Because he always complaining about money. Right? He had like 3 or 4 kids. Wife didn't work. And it was sad. It was really sad that this happened to him because he was a good guy. What made him turn? And that's the way it usually goes. You don't have really inherent bad guys. Something happens in their lives to make them turn. They're desperate, or you got the greedy asshole once in a while. And that's the way it happens. Later on, much later in my career, I played tennis with this one guy. We played tennis quite a few times. He ended up getting arrested by the DEA. He was guarding shipments. And of course, we had no idea. Now, what I do know is that when they turned, whoever it was that turned on him, flipped, the DEA started investigating everybody that was associated with him to see if anybody was involved, associated by friendship, work relationship, or whatever. So I know that they looked into me and they checked my bank accounts to see if I had, ill-gotten gains.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're gonna check everybody involved.
Yeah, all
with
his
that guy.
associates, of course.
And whether it was them directly or not, or our internal affairs, I know they looked into me. And then they found out I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together at the time. I was just his tennis partner, right? And I never heard anything about it until after he got arrested. And he was doing federal time. So why he turned, he was desperate, greedy, or whatever the case is. And that, it's happened to a few of Miami-Dade guys, because it happens everywhere. But City of Miami, New York, Los Angeles, it happens everywhere. Police department.
Of course.
But that time here, there was, and this was with this second guy, my tennis partner, was way later. But back in the 80s, the money that was flowing through this place
It was ridiculous.
was incredible. They say that, I want to say 90% was maybe a number that I heard, but 90% of the money, cash flowing through South Florida was tainted with cocaine.
Right. They said something like, it was like some ridiculous, like most cash in Miami at the time, if you hold it up to the sun, it had some sort of like residue on it or something from drugs.
Right.
That's
and
nuts.
every single party, that you go to, Coke's on the table, and of course the really cool people, the cool guys, would snort Coke with $100 bills, right? They roll them up. Instead of $1, you want to impress the ladies, right? They'd roll up a $100 bill and they'd be doing lines and stuff like that. I'm not a party goer, never have been. Even when I was a teenager growing up in New York State. If I went to a bar a couple of times with some of the friends, it wasn't my thing. But I've been to a few parties during that time. And especially during that time, you don't want to be known as the cop at the party.
For sure.
Right? And one of the things that you were taught that's in the manual, if you're put in that situation, you don't do anything. You don't take any kind of action. You just let it go. And I saw cocaine on the tables and stuff like that, where if I was working, I'd arrest you. But I'm in a social setting. It's not going to go away. I'm not there to fix anything. And I ended up leaving because I didn't want to be in that situation.
Right.
Whether the woman or my first wife I was with, you just have to let it go. Because it was everywhere. No bar was immune from it. People doing lines on the bar or at the tables. Go and have your beer, hang out with your friends or whatever, and just leave everything alone.
Was there so much crime and so much drugs on the street at that time that, like, you conscious of the fact that you guys had no shot of, like, putting a dent in this thing?
Absolutely. Finger in a dike. And then the leak is over here. And then you got another leak you got to put your foot in. You can't do it. There was so much pouring into South Florida. Back to the movie, Scarface. The scene of them carrying duffel bags of cash into the banks, it's absolutely true. Brickell Avenue, which is now becoming Wall Street South because
Right.
of everything happening in New York City, right? There was no banks on Brickell back at that time, and then the banks just started popping up all over the place. Well, what do you think? How do you think what do banks need in order to function?
Money.
They need money. Where was the money coming from? They're washing money, right?
course.
They're laundering money. And when I saw that scene, and by the way, the song playing during that scene, Take It to the Limit, right? Great song. Love that song. It said it all, right? These guys were taking it to the limit, and the money was unlimited. And some of the documentaries that we've had on the Cocaine Cowboys, when they're showing, like you have here, right? And I think that you have that for a reason.
Right.
But then you've got big piles of it, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions over time. How are we going to stop that? We're just a police department. We can't, and you have to understand that. You just play the game. It's cat and mouse. We arrest the bad guys when we find them with drugs, right? Ounce of coke. The way the policy is, any white powder is a felony. Suspected cocaine or maybe heroin.
Right. All possession of cocaine is felony possession of cocaine.
Right, exactly. Marijuana, misdemeanor, unless it's a certain amount. And of course, we have the phenomenon in South Florida back then of square groupers, right?
What's square grouper?
Bales of marijuana in the ocean.
Ah, okay.
Right? They throw them overboard, right? If they're going to get caught by Customs or Metro or Miami Beach or Coast Guard, you got square groupers floating. That's what it was called. Of course, bales of marijuana is trafficking, so that's felony. But it was just everywhere. What were you going to do about it? Nothing. I'd stop you. You have half a key on you. You're going to jail, right? There's no not getting out of that.
Right.
And then we had a little thing that we called working the phones. The squad that I was on, the plainclothes squad, we were in uniform first before we transitioned fully to plainclothes. So we had banks of telephones, payphones, which don't exist anymore, that we would watch from a distance with binoculars. And you'd watch the drug dealers with the roll of quarters and the beeper. Only doctors and drug dealers had beepers back then, right? And they're putting quarter after quarter after quarter, and who are they calling? They're calling Colombia, they're calling Bolivia, whatever. You'd watch them. You got a drug dealer. They'd finish their call, they'd get in their car, and we'd follow them and we would stop them. Come up with a key, half a key, a gun, whatever. It was almost like shooting fish in a barrel. They never argued with us. They never fought with us because they didn't want a problem with the police. And then most of them were here illegally. So then what we would do is we would call Border Patrol. They would come out. Border Patrol didn't need a warrant to go in wherever they were staying because they were illegal. So Border Patrol would go in after we made the initial arrest, and then we would find the rest of the stuff. So it'd be a co-arrest with Border Patrol ICE operations.
These would be Colombians mainly?
So it was Colombians and Cubans.
Okay.
The Mariel, like your grandmother, right? That brought a lot of criminals. But the Colombians were here as well.
When did the Colombians start transitioning into Miami? When did you start seeing them come here?
Well, I moved here in 1980, but they were already transitioning into Miami.
Right, like late 70s.
Yes,
okay.
Late 70s. And then when the Cubans came, then they were just either together or warring factions, competitors with each other.
Would you say, so but both these Cubans and Colombians dealt drugs, and it was kind of like a turf war between the both of them? Or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Just like in the movie, the chainsaw scene, right? Where Tony Montana, who's Cuban, was sent by his Cuban boss to deal with the Colombians. As we know in the movie, he was set up to be killed by that other guy that ended up getting hanged in the helicopter down in Bolivia, right? It was a turf war, and you did not encroach on each other, hence all the murders that we were handling.
Were most of the murders you encountered like Colombians shooting it out with Cubans and that kind of stuff?
Or Colombians against Colombians or Cubans against Cubans. Turf wars were everywhere. The difference between the two cultures, Cubans looked at it as a business and they kept their family away from it. If one drug dealer ripped off a Cuban drug dealer, if they're going to retaliate, they only go after the drug dealer. They left the family alone. The family was sacred. Colombians, on the other hand, will go kill your whole family. Okay? They're sending a message. Everybody is fair game. Cops, if you were a good cop, they didn't go after you. If you were a dirty cop involved with them,
you were fair game.
You were fair game.
Yep.
Right? Well, you're just as bad as they are, and you tarnish the badge, and
you're a criminal.
You're a criminal, right? So that's what was happening at the time, and literally finding murders every single day. And in the area that I worked, a lot of the drug dealers lived. They built the big houses. We knew the big houses. We knew who they were. And back then, everybody now has a Ring camera or one of those other things on the house, right?
Right.
Back then, if a house had cameras on it, it's a drug dealer. Nobody could afford that technology.
Must have been super expensive to have that on your house back then.
Absolutely. And you're talking about cameras that are, like this big, on all the corners of the houses and property.
Like Tony with the screens in his office and all that.
100%, right? Hey, what's that van there? What do you mean? I got to look at that van, right? What do you mean not look at it? I got to look at it. Great scenes, right? I love the movie. But we knew who the drug dealers were. Those of us that worked uniform patrol, we stay in our lane. That's not our business.
So not only was the crime and all that, it was hyper elevated and at a just present. The cops knew where these drug dealers lived. Like you knew their addresses and where, it was known.
Absolutely.
That's nuts.
Absolutely. They didn't hide it. How can you hide in that time? This is not a lot of money in today's real estate dollars. But how do you hide a $750,000 house back then?
That's probably like a $5 million house now,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So a big house goes up in a neighborhood, it doesn't belong in. That's a drug dealer. That's not a Hollywood person, an entertainer or something, because they don't live in these neighborhoods.
Right.
But the drug dealers do. And they built this big, beautiful house here that where the houses cost $80,000, $100,000, maybe $150,000 at the time. And you've got this mansion. We know who you are. But that's for our narcotics bureau and the
Right.
DEA to worry about.
Right.
If we get a call there, a police call,
that's
911
different, yeah.
call, is different. And then if we find anything, we turn it over to narcotics.
Right.
Okay? It's not our job as uniformed patrol to worry about those things. We've got calls to handle. We've got domestics and burglaries and all kinds of stuff going on.
Right.
And crashes and whatever. And the separation in the duties actually makes it easier. A small police department, everybody's got to worry about everything. Like one guy is the homicide detective, the robbery detective, the general investigations detective, maybe the sexual battery detective, for really small departments. We're specialized, and we grew over the years, and we have all these different specialized units. Plus, maybe that one officer also, he has a military background. He's also an ad hoc SWAT guy. So they've got all these different duties that they have to worry about. We don't have to worry about that. We're a large department. Everybody's specialized. But uniform patrol, you worry about uniform duties.
Right.
If you come across something, you can contact a specialized unit. We find a guy with a kilo, call narcotics. They come over, take over the investigation. The uniformed guy writes his little report, give it to narcotics. We get a call of a dead guy. I respond as an officer. Me and my squad mates call the sergeant. Every dead person call, the sergeant has to come by to make sure that it's being handled correctly, whether it's a murder, accidental, natural death.
Right.
Right? Somebody, as my brother would say in his years in crime scene, I'd call him up. I go, hey, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I got a natural death. Guy woke up dead. And that's the way he would term it. Someone had a heart attack during the night. They died in their sleep. We always hear they died in their sleep. But that's a death scene. So you got to write a report. And you got to call homicide. It's the same thing, even a murder. You got to call homicide. They call a crime scene. Eventually, they call the medical examiner's office that comes out to pick up the body or bodies, depending on what you have. And it's very simplified. I have my duties as a uniform officer and then later as a uniform sergeant. The specialized detectives have their duties as well as their supervisors, and it just makes it easy. Like we like to say, stay in your lane.
Right.
I'm a uniform guy. I'm not doing narcotics investigations. If I come across something, I pass along the information.
Right.
Simple.
So you started in 83. So your first 5, 6, 7 years in the 80s. Before we move on into the 90s, I want to touch up on two things. One, was there any situations that you encountered? I remember you saying the traffic stop is the most dangerous thing a cop can do. Was there any specific traffic stops from that era of your career that you can kind of cite and say, you literally dodged your bullet? Or maybe something where, like an interesting story you can tell us?
Yeah, there is one. And it wasn't a traffic stop. But on all traffic stops, as I was telling Jason, you never know who you're stopping in the car.
Right.
Who that person is, what they did, what they just did. Do they have a warrant? Are they just, like on my own podcast, I don't like to curse a lot, but sometimes you got to use things to describe. So
right.
as I describe them, and I describe them in my book, asshole bad guy. That's the way I term bad guys.
Right.
You don't know if you have an asshole bad guy in the car. You're just stopping them for a traffic violation, but you have no idea who you're stopping. And for the audience, think about stopping a van or a car with dark tints at night that you can't see in. You have no idea who's in that car. How many guys or people that are in that car. And you may just walk into the jackpot one time, which happens every day on the streets of America. Officers encounter that. I've been fortunate where any encounter that I've had, I was able to control and someone didn't ambush me. Because sometimes it's just luck. It's not because you're great at, the traffic stop or what you're doing. You have your training, your experience, you take precautions, you're trying to look in with your flashlight or whatever the case is, or as you're approaching the car, you're looking in the car if you can see in it, and you're seeing what the movement is, how many people there are. Sometimes you're just damn lucky. Right? And then if I have a problem with the driver or another passenger, I get back up there and I take them out so we can control them. The one situation, January 7th, 1987. My son's godfather, Gary, and I, working 2 to 10. We were partners. I'm the driver. I'm always the driver, just about all the time. I love to drive, and I became a driving instructor for the department, so I kind of controlled it. And all my partners always knew I liked to drive. We're heading back to the barn, as we called it, at about 9:30 to end our shift. And a call goes out, man at the door with a gun. We're pretty close to it, even though we're getting off. And we also knew we were going to be crossing paths with the units coming to the house. And Gary and I go, we got to go. Right. So I go. We arrive, the house is dark, and I pull up just a little bit east of the house. When you have a suspicious call, when you have a domestic or something, you never pull up in front of the house. Now, I know you and everybody has watched TV shows and movies where the cops walk right up to the front door and they knock on the door. Stupid, dangerous. It's no man's land. You never do that. So I pulled up just east, pulled up with my lights off. Gary gets out and goes directly around this side of the house. I have no choice but to cross the front of the house, but I crossed it kind of in a wide pattern. There's some trees in the front yard, and I use it as cover. Concealment. Difference between cover and concealment. Cover means you're protected from the bullets. Concealment means you're just hidden. Different animal. So I make it to the other side of the house. I got my gun out. We tell the dispatcher, hold the air. We're checking. Remember, the call is a man at the door with a gun. Spidey senses up, right? And I get around the back and I look in through this big picture window in the back of the house. I first see a 12-gauge shotgun on the couch. And then I see the 56-year-old at the front door holding what we learned later on was a .30 caliber carbine. And he's looking at the people, waiting for us. I get on the radio. Got a bad guy inside with a gun. Okay, she's still holding the air. I make it to the sliding glass door of the kitchen. I come up at the end of the wall to the glass door, and the 18-year-old meets me there. He's holding a semi-auto in his hand. I'm holding my revolver in my hand. He looks at me. I look at him, and we both go, "Oh shit!" Right? Because he startled me. Right? He's a bad guy with a gun. He goes running into the house, and I go to a big barbecue pit that they had. It was about this height. It's the only cover that I had. I get behind it. I get on the radio. Another bad guy with a gun. Start the world, right? So everybody's coming. He's inside the house. I don't know where he went. And then there's a room right off the kitchen, and a guy in a blue suit comes out, 32-year-old. And he's got the family behind him in pajamas. And they're kind of pushing him towards the sliding glass door. And he's doing this. Everything okay? Everything okay? And I'm yelling at him to open the door and come out and give himself up to me. Everything okay? Everything okay? The family unlocks the door, right? They push the sliding glass door open a little bit. He's still saying okay. And then they slide the door open and they push him out to me. So I ran up and I grabbed him. I had him like this. I put my gun to his head and I told him a few, lovely things in his ear. And I told the family, go that way. Gary was on the corner waiting for them. So we rescued the family. And then I took him and I dragged him like this to Gary. He handcuffed him. He had no weapons on him. Put him in the car. The world is arriving now, as we call it, all the other backup units. I went back and took my position behind the barbecue pit. Sergeant arrived on the scene, took control of the scene. Special response team was called, right? Our version of SWAT. They came over and took over. And one of the guys on the team turned out to be a partner and close friend of mine later on. And Frank told me, yeah, we negotiated with them for a little while, but then we told them we were going to come in and kill them if they didn't give up. And they gave up.
All right, guys, taking a quick break from the podcast to talk to you about Gus Villa Jewelry. Yo, let's be real here for a second. If you're rocking plain jewelry in Miami, of all places, you are doing it 100% wrong, my boy. Step your game up with Gus Villa Jewelry, the plug for real Cuban link gold and silver chains. And, of course, the cleanest Rolexes in all of Miami. This isn't factory made or watered down or any of that stuff. This is high quality, custom, handmade stuff that shines from here to the moon. It turns heads, starts conversations, and makes you look fresh. Gus has something that'll level up your whole vibe. And because you're locked in here with us at Honor Among Thieves Podcast, you're getting a hookup. Use the promo code Montana at checkout. Get 5% off your entire order. That's right, 5% off. Go check them out at GusVillaJewelry.com or pull up on them in the Diamond District down here in downtown Miami. GusVillaJewelry.com. Again, that's GusVillaJewelry.com. And tell them your boy Montana sent you. Gus Villa Jewelry. Now back to the podcast. So two guys.
The other two guys inside gave up to the special response
Okay.
team, right? And Frank, when the negotiators told them, they're just going to come in and kill you, give yourselves up.
Right.
They found some more weapons. So the irony of the thing is, remember we were talking about how we know who the drug dealers are because they got the big cameras on the side of the house? They were supposed to hit the house next door with the cameras. Those are the drug dealers, not this house. They hit it by mistake.
So they hit a house with a family in it by
With
mistake.
a family in it. And then in a kitchen drawer, we found the zip ties, the plastic zip ties that they tied the family up with. But they cut them after we arrived to make it look like the family was okay.
Right.
Abuela, who was in that group, is the one that called the police. She was able to sneak a phone call out. So now we have to go to court. They're in jail, no bond, home invasion, robbery, weapons, the whole 9 yards. I'm testifying. Each one has his own attorney. So the state attorney brought me up to talk about it. And then I said, well, Your Honor, he was at the front door with the carbine and a 12 gauge on the couch. And I went through it just like I told you, Nelson. Exact. The 18-year-old at the glass door with the gun and the blue suit, 32-year-old, this and that and the other. The attorneys are trying to trip me up. And I'm going, no, that's not what I said. He did this, he did this, he did this, okay? The judge goes, I don't need to hear any more. My testimony was spot on. So he held him in jail without bond. What I found out, the state attorney's office, when they did their background investigations on these guys, the 56-year-old at the front door with the carbine, what he did before that, he was involved in truck hijackings on the highways.
Wow.
And his job was to follow the hijacked truck where his buddies took the truck. And if a trooper stopped him, he was supposed to drive by and kill the trooper. He was a real asshole bad guy.
Real psycho. Yeah.
The guy in the blue suit somehow escaped from the Dade County stockade.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how that happened.
Yeah.
Right? He fled to Costa Rica. And the reason we know that is because the Costa Rican police, after a few months, found him. He was in a 5th floor apartment. Somehow he ended up on the 1st floor in about 3 seconds. When he was extradited back, he was in a full body cast with a broken arm like this, and, because he took a header out,
Right.
I guess the Costa Rican police played differently down there. He and the 56-year-old got 2 25-year sentences, and the 18-year-old got 1 25-year sentence. But they hit the wrong house. All of this, and they hit the wrong house.
What a bunch of morons.
But I can tell you, Nelson, and I feel it, I know it. had Gary and I gone to that front door, you and I wouldn't be here today.
100%.
And I would be just another statistic along with Gary.
What it must have been crazy to get to the back of the house and see the guy at the door. And you must have thought that, right? Like you saw the guy at the door with the gun and you were like, man, if I would have, you know.
We call it pucker factor. Your asshole puckers up.
Right.
Like this, right? At 100%.
Right.
Now, was I scared? Yes, I was, but I wasn't panicking. I said, okay. And I calmly told the dispatcher, there's a guy holding a rifle at the front door. Okay. I started to panic a little bit when I met the 18-year-old, the Glasser, because we were like this, face to face.
Right.
You know, looking at each other. His face was right here, and my face was right here. So I was, you know, a little startled.
Right.
But neither one of us panicked. You know, we handled it, and that just comes with time. You know, so at that time I had 4 years on the job, just about 4 years out on the road. You learn a lot, you develop, you know, and at that time, especially in departments like ours, busy jurisdictions, you get a lot of experience really fast. I had great teachers. My field training officers were phenomenal. I learned so much from the three of them. But then I learned with the senior officers that I worked with on the various squads. No one does this alone, and no one is super cop, you know, like Jackie Chan, Super Cop, the movie. You have to work within a team environment, and you got to learn from each other, and everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
You know, I had learned enough at that point not to panic when something bad happened. And something bad was going to happen there.
It's definitely happening.
Yeah. I mean, when I tell this story and I think about it, you know, that guy, I can see him in my mind's eye at the front door. This is 1987. I still have that vision, that memory. Happens to all of us.
Man, this is 87. When did you feel, as a cop that worked in Miami-Dade, when did you feel maybe not the valley of the 80s coming down into the 90s, or maybe the transition? When did you feel that, and when did you say, all right, things are different now? Was there ever a moment where you said, all right, the 80s are over? Like, tell me about that.
A very large drop in the amount of murders, drug-related murders.
It was gradual. Like, was it a gradual kind of?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Everything fades out in life, right? Everything comes and goes. Nothing happens overnight, right? An earthquake, kills hundreds of thousands of people. That happens overnight, but nothing like that. And the way we live, our lives go on, everything is gradual.
Right.
You still have a lot of the regular parasitic crime, the street crime and stuff.
Right.
The drugs just brought more of it because it's a trickle-down effect. People are committing crimes to get money to buy drugs, you know, the low-level people and the addicts. But the murderers would taper off. We still had a lot of drugs flowing through South Florida. There always has been, not to that level.
Right.
And then we still had the regular crime, you know, and then you would have auto thefts were a big thing, or when the term carjacking started happening. Then we had a lot of that. And we had tourist carjackings. People would drive out of Miami International Airport in their rent-a-car at the agencies and then pull over the side of the road and pull the map out. Well, what do you have? You got a tourist who's about to become a victim, right? So carjackings were happening with tourists, and a few tourists were getting killed. And that was a big thing for a while. Burglaries had always been a big thing, and we were very busy with that. But then everything else just never slowed down. It's always the same. Police work's always the same in general terms. You got your domestics every single day. What we did have a huge uptick that is continuing today is mental illness. I became heavily involved in the last 7 or 8 years of my career training officers to deal with people with mental illness.
Right.
And the rate of mental illness in the United States is about 3.1% among the population. In Miami-Dade County, it's 9%.
Wow.
It's much higher. So you cannot be a police officer in South Florida at any moderate to busy police department without taking people into protective custody and taking them to a crisis receiving facility. There's just so much of it, so many people with mental illness that suffer a psychotic break or suffer from neglect. go off of their meds, and you have to take them into custody and deliver them someplace. Most of the time it goes smoothly. A lot of times it doesn't. And you've got someone that's fighting you because they have mental illness.
Right.
Not that they mean to hurt you, you know. So that is always there. And all the other stuff is always there. It's just that the amount of murders went down. But nothing else really changes. You're just busy all the time. A big watershed moment for us in Miami-Dade was Hurricane Andrew. Kicked our asses. We had no plan. And South Dade got destroyed. We didn't know how to respond to it. Now there's hurricane plans in place and all the different things that we do now.
Right.
But you learn from these things. You know, police work evolves. Try to keep up with the times. Domestics is another thing. We had to evolve on how to properly handle domestics. And the O.J. Simpson case changed the way we responded to domestics and how we handle them.
It's interesting how that case affected the entire country.
Big time. It divided the country. I understand, you know, what was the saying? Let the juice get loose, or, you know, whatever the sayings that they come up with. Don't squeeze the juice and all that. As a cop, looking at the evidence, he's guilty of sin. I have no doubt that he committed those murders. I've actually had people tell me, well, how could he have killed them both? Right? Taking two people on at the same time. I said, let's do an experiment. I'll get something that doubles as a knife. I pick up something and I put 4 people around me. I go, okay, I'm going to stab all 4 of you before you can do anything about it. And I was able to. They were shocked. The rage that he felt against his wife dating somebody else because she was no longer with him. We don't know which one he killed first, but somebody walked up on the other one. I'm guessing that he probably killed Nicole first and Goldman walked up, or he was already there and Nicole came out and then he killed her. It was very easy. But he was a strong man. He was a professional football player. Very easy to kill 2 people with a knife in a couple of seconds. So I think that he did it, but his case changed the way we handle domestics. How many times did LAPD go to his house on domestics with him and Nicole? We have the photographs that showed him how many times he beat her up, and no arrest was ever made. That launched a study in Miami-Dade for Miami-Dade Police where we get a domestic case of an assault, domestic battery, and it had to be a misdemeanor case to qualify for the study. We would determine that one of the parties assaulted the other, physically assaulted the other. Misdemeanor battery, grabbing, a bruise, a slap, a punch, but not felony level, meaning very serious injuries or with a weapon. If someone picks up a vase and hits you with it, that's battery with a aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. We notify the dispatcher. We have a case that qualifies for the study. She would hit a button on the console. We get an A or a B. A means make the arrest. B means not make the arrest. The study showed after the 6 months of compiling the data, if we made the arrest, the rate of domestic violence in that particular household came down.
That makes sense.
Or stopped altogether. Because recidivism in domestic violence cases is high.
Right.
If the husband, and it's usually the husband or boyfriend, most of the time. Happens the other way too. But if we don't arrest the husband or boyfriend, he's going to do it again.
Right.
So the study showed it reduced it, the amount of times we had to go back there, and just responding back for a domestic argument, it reduced it. But if we didn't make the arrest, it continued. So then now we're learning how to properly handle these domestic cases. And we created a domestic violence bureau of detectives that just specialized in that. Because it never stops. Domestic cases never stop. And it's the single most dangerous call that an officer goes on. Because the emotions are so elevated and usually out of control. So all those things never really stop. There's trends. the carjackings, the auto thefts, the burglaries, the robberies.
Right, just like in the 80s, it was cocaine and then crack, and then in the 90s, that kind of like slowed down.
Right.
And then later on, you had, the pill epidemic. I mean, it's
Right.
time in history, and now you have fentanyl.
And now you have fentanyl.
Yeah, which is different, but that's a whole other story. Let's stick to the 90s for a second.
Sure.
I remember you telling me towards was it the late 90s, where it was one of the more gruesome things you encountered. I believe it was a shooting where minors were involved.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about that story?
It was in Liberty City in our North Side district. It was a grocery store that wasn't really a grocery store because there's no food on the shelves.
Right.
It's just a front for drug dealing. We would shut it down. It would open up with some other people. But this one particular night, 2 kids were in there, and it was a drive-by with AKs, and they lit them up. The scene is, they both died at the hospital, but on scene, and then rescues getting there and doing it. I mean, what these assault rifles do to a body, and I'm talking about other than a crash. I've handled many fatal crashes where you're looking, they're mangled. It's very bad. But this is not a crash or an accident, as many people call it. This is humans inflicting damage on other humans. And I got to say that when you see somebody opened up like that because of gunshot wounds, it's not pretty. Now, that's just me as a uniformed guy, whether as an officer or as a sergeant, responding to these scenes and seeing these things. My brother, who I mentioned in crime scene, he's got to process every single one of these scenes. Imagine what he saw during his career, including industrial accidents, construction sites and things happening. A guy getting run over by a gantry crane at the Port of Miami. We actually handled that when I was assigned at the Port of Miami. Wasn't paying attention. Somebody moves a gantry crane. Well, that's got train wheels on it that are enormous. He put a lounge chair underneath next to it in the shade to take a nap. Nobody knew he was there.
Wow.
And they end up moving the crane because the ship came in, right? And you got to move them around.
Right.
Yeah, it's
gruesome.
It is. And I don't like those things.
I don't think anybody does.
I mean, but there's cops that can look at it. And case in point, forgive me for not remembering his name. Remember that guy who had his head cut off on the internet in the Middle East? He was kidnapped.
Yeah, I know who you're referring to.
Oh, I forget his name. Forgive me. Well, it was shown on the internet, and the guys were one day watching it on the computer. And I started to see it, and I looked away. And they're going, oh, come here, check this out. I go, no, I don't like that. Okay? I've seen enough death and destruction during my career that I don't need to watch it as like entertainment or something. Not that they were watching as entertainment, more of a curiosity. And it's absolutely horrendous what these terrorists have done to a lot of people. But I don't covet that. I don't look at it. I don't watch real medical shows where they're showing operations. I don't want to see that.
Right.
I've had enough. I look away. My wife can watch, medical shows when they're showing real surgery and stuff. I don't.
Yeah. Sarge, we've been recording for an hour and a half. This is fantastic. I definitely got to have you back. We'll get deeper into this latter half of your career and everything. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. I usually wrap up asking the same couple of questions. So,
sure.
One, what's next for you?
Well, continuing to enjoy what I think is well-deserved retirement. I continue to write opinion editorials for Think American for Jessica's website. I have my own podcast, Sergeant Maverick, the podcast, all things police work, politics, and life. I'm pushing my book to try to get it out there. I would love to be on the New York Times bestseller list, but that's where help from you guys come in to help, spread the word.
Sure.
My book is a how-to guide for police work, so people understand who we are, what we do, how and why we do it. But that's, and then just doing the things we do. We spend a lot of time with the kids and grandkids. My wife and I travel. You have to enjoy the fruits of your labor, because and we can get into it more next time around, the sacrifices that a police officer or a firefighter, but especially a police officer, makes during their careers, because you don't get to spend a lot of time at home.
Right.
You know, and missing out on sleep. It's one of the things I don't miss, is getting up early to go to work.
Bonus question that I wasn't thinking of asking, but I'll ask it now. What's amongst retired cops and police officers, what's mental health like, PTSD and that kind of stuff?
It happens to quite a few. They're struggling in retirement. One of the big things about retiring is you're no longer with those people that you spent every day with for years and years and years, and no longer have the action, right? And the structure of the job. You've got to replace that with something else.
Right.
Therefore, you have to have a plan going into retirement. You got to plan for it. I've had colleagues that told me this is the day they worked and this is the day retired. They went from 100 miles an hour to 0, and they had nothing to do for a while. And it's very hard for a lot of them. A lot of the things that we see things that no one should ever see. Does affect some of us, and they have the nightmares, and they're struggling, and alcoholism is a big thing. You ever watch The Big Bang Theory?
Yes.
Sheldon always said, I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested. Well, we weren't crazy when we started the job. We're a little crazy afterwards, and you got to learn how to deal with that. I can say with all confidence, I'm very well adjusted. I've had my anger issues and things like that, but I don't drink to excess. I drink to enjoy and relax with my wife or friends and, gatherings, or we go out to dinner and have a drink. Never used drugs other than marijuana in high school, like in the 70s, like most of us did. But there's guys that do struggle, and it's very hard for them, and they got to get counseling. They need help. So anybody listening, if you are struggling, get yourself some help. I'm part of a group called the Miami-Dade County Multi-Agency Peer Support Team, where we have trained people that go out to officers and their families and help them with their struggles. You need the help sometimes, every once in a while. You're going through a divorce, or you've been through a divorce, or you don't have your kids, or you have a death in the family. All these things add up. You got to get some help.
Right.
I'm okay, and most of my friends are okay. And we, like Monday coming up, we got a group of retired guys, plus my son and a couple other guys still working. We get together, we have breakfast, we talk about the stuff, and we commiserate and shoot the shit and solve the world's problems. And we're going to be complaining about the election in New York, and we're going to do all those things. But it keeps you close to one another. You got to have that. If you don't have anything, you're going to spiral. And then maybe you're going to get into alcohol, maybe you're going to get into drugs.
Right.
And police suicide is a real problem, just like the military.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate, unseen problem we have in society. I think cops are overworked, underpaid, and people are not aware of just how thin the line is between total chaos and order, and the police is that line, that thin line that keeps society from falling into utter chaos.
The purge.
Yeah.
It would be the purge.
If cops took a day off, for sure, the world would turn into a purge within hours. So, next question: How do you hope to be remembered?
As a good husband and father. I've been married 3 times. I'm your typical cop, right? But I'm with Rosie now for 22 years, and 3rd time's a charm. Okay.
Amazing.
But good husband, good father, great grandfather, right? Playing, spending time with them. But as far as the job goes, I did it right. I did it professionally. I tried to be the best that I could. I learned from great people, and I paid it forward to all the officers I've trained and mentored. And that, as a sergeant specifically, I do have a reputation for taking care of my people. I train them, I discipline them when necessary, I come down on them, but I teach them because everybody makes mistakes. And the police work's very unforgiving. It's like the military. They remember long term that you did this way back when.
Right.
Where in the military, they won't promote you. That I did it right and I took care of my people, and that I got all my people home safely at the end of every shift.
I love that. Do you believe in redemption?
I have a hard time with religious and spiritual ideology. Some of your audience will be upset with me when I tell them I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. But I don't say that you shouldn't believe. I respect everybody's beliefs. I personally feel if there was a God, why do children get sick with cancer? Why did 200,000 people in Haiti die in an earthquake or a tsunami in Malaysia? Or Officer Cahuso from Miami Beach Police, who just got killed on his motorcycle this past week. And he has a young family. I can't believe it's God's will. I always hear it's God's will. I don't see it. That's just me, okay? My personal belief. I'm never going to argue with you and tell you that you shouldn't believe in God or whatever it is, what God or spirit that you believe in.
But do you believe redemption in the, maybe not in the spiritual portion, but maybe in the fact that someone can do something pretty atrocious and come back and become a better person?
Oh, for sure. In that context, yes. You learn from what you did. Or maybe you had a close call in life and you changed. Yes, absolutely. Because I think that's within the person.
Right.
How they got there, that's on them or in them or whatever. And if you needed religion to get there, to become a better person, the canons in religion I don't disagree with. Do unto others as you would have done right. Unto you. Absolutely, 100%. I just think they're human conditions. Right? Love thy neighbor. Don't bang your neighbor's wife.
Something like that.
Right. But I think it's just a human condition where
all
that is meaningful. I just personally don't think there's a deity, that is controlling everything. But if you do, that's okay with me. I'm not your typical atheist that says you shouldn't believe or we should take God out of the Pledge of Allegiance or anything like that. 100%. No. It's the way it was done, the way the country was founded. Just understand that the First Amendment allows me to believe in what I believe or not believe.
Of course.
But absolutely, in that context, yeah, and I'm glad you phrased it that way. 100%. If you did something before, you learned from it, you're a better person. You're Jeffrey Dahmer, not so much.
Yeah, I think there's a line of I think there's a point of no return. I agree with you there.
Right, exactly.
Sarge, we got to have you back. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I loved it. Thank you for inviting me.
Definitely.
I'd love to come back anytime you want. I live, an hour away.
Sure. How can people connect with you?
SergeantMaverick.com. SGTMaverick.com is my website. It's got my emails on there for contact. It's got my links to my podcast episodes that I've just launched, and my opinion editorials with thinkamerican.news. But you can get a hold of me there. Anytime anybody wants to talk about police work, politics, or life, like I do on my podcast, because it's all connected. We're all connected, So thank you again for having me. It's been a great time.
Of course, my friend. All righty, guys. That was another episode of Honor Among Thieves. Special guest, Sergeant Maverick. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy.
FBI, open up! The FBI swarming a Miami house and taking a man into custody in the area of Southwest.
So say goodnight to the bad guy.
The agency says the 28-year-old was picked up after the grand jury indicted him and 5 others.